They say the worst power trip is the one handed to someone who never earned it. That became painfully clear the day Karen Whitfield, self-declared queen of Willowbrook Estates, tried to have me arrested on my own land. If you love seeing justice served and overzealous HOA letters put in their place, stick around. This story of a nosy neighbor turned full-blown tyrant will leave you stunned. I wasn't even surprised anymore, not after months of watching her spiral. From nosy neighbor to full-blown nuisance with a superiority complex the size of Texas. What did catch me off guard was the crunch of tires on gravel, followed by the sight of the sheriff's cruisers rolling up my private drive, lights flashing, like they were responding to a hostage situation. I was sipping coffee on my porch when I saw her Karen Whitfield, standing at the gate like a general sending her troops into battle, arms crossed, lips pursed, sunglasses on even though the sun was behind a cloud. She waved the deputies forward, practically bouncing with anticipation. One deputy, young, maybe a year out of the academy, approached with his hand hovering over his service weapon. His partner stayed near the cruiser, looking like he'd rather be anywhere else. Karen marched behind them, chin held so high I thought she might lose balance and fall over. "Sir," the younger deputy said, his voice stiff, trying hard to sound authoritative. "We received a report of trespassing and illegal occupation of this property." I could see Karen light up behind him, her face twisted in that smug eye. "Finally got you" expression she wore like perfume. I didn't answer right away. Instead, I reached into my back pocket and pulled out a worn leather wallet. I flipped it open so the badge caught the light. "U.S. Marshal, retired," I said, calmly. 20 years. The deputy blinked hard, his whole posture changing in under 2 seconds. Like someone had hit a switch, Karen's triumphant smirk collapsed on itself, her mouth parting slightly as if her brain hadn't caught up to what her eyes were seeing. "Marshal Williams," the deputy said, clearly recognizing the name. "Sir, I apologize. We were told you were a squatter. Let me tell you how we got here, how I ended up with 2 deputies on my land, and the whole president trying to have me removed from property I not only legally owned but had purposely purchased, because it sat far outside any homeowner association's reach. After retiring from the marshal service, I bought this 40-acre ranch for its peace, privacy, and zoning status. It had been designated agricultural since 1942, grandfathered before Karen's little subdivision even existed. I wanted horses, open land, and quiet. What I got was Karen Whitfield. It started the weeks after I moved in. I got a letter, typed, formatted like an official notice, complete with cheesy clip art of a house and white picket fence. "Dear resident," it began, "your property has been found in violation of Willowbrook Estates community standards. The violations: unapproved fence color, it was untreated cedar, excessive outdoor structures that would be my 100-year-old barn, and a kicker, maintaining livestock in a residential area." I thought it was a joke. I even laughed. Then I walked over to Karen's house that evening with the letter in hand. She opened the door, wearing slacks and a blouse like she was about to lead a TED Talk, not greet a neighbor. "Miss Whitfield," I said, polite as I could manage, "I think there's been a misunderstanding. My property isn't part of your HOA." She tilted her head like I'd spoken a foreign language. "All properties in this area fall under our governance," she said, each word soaked in condescension. "We maintain community standards." "My deed predates your subdivision by 60 years, I told her, handing over the paperwork. "Agricultural zoning. You have no jurisdiction." She barely glanced at the documents. "We'll see about that," she said, and closed the door in my face. That was the last time she pretended to be civil. Over the next few weeks, she began staking out my ranch like she was planning a raid. I caught her at the fence line with a zoom lens camera. She'd stand there, taking pictures of my vehicles to pickup trucks and a tractor as if documenting a crime scene. She started mailing violations like she was on salary: improper landscaping, too many vehicles, noise infractions. My rooster, by the way, crowed like any healthy rooster at dawn. The morning I found her actually on my property with a measuring tape was the moment I realized we had officially entered madness. She stood near the chicken coop, tape stretched between her hands like a sheriff measuring a crime scene. "You're trespassing," I said from the porch. "These chickens are too close to residential property." She snapped. "County code requires a 500-foot buffer. County code says 50 feet. I replied. "I measured. I've got 350. "You're endangering community property values," she barked. "You walked past a no trespassing sign. I'm conducting official HOA business on private land outside your jurisdiction. Leave now, or I'll remove you." She left, but not before muttering something about escalating things to the highest levels. I figured she meant the whole board. I was wrong. 3 weeks later, I was replacing a broken fence post when I saw someone fiddling with a locked gate. Karen had scaled it. She walked toward me, holding a manila folder like a summons. "Mr. Williams," she said breathlessly, "I have here a cease and desist order requiring you to vacate this property immediately." I wiped my hands on my jeans and took the papers. They looked like they had been printed off a public domain legal site. Half the citations were HOA bylaws that didn't apply to non-members. The rest were county codes she didn't understand. "This isn't enforceable, Karen," I said. "You can't evict me from land I own. I am the president of the Willowbrook Estates HOA." She declared, "And you're trespassing again. I'm not leaving until you comply. Then I'm calling the sheriff." "Go ahead," she scoffed. "Tell them Karen Whitfield sent you. I've worked with code enforcement for years. They know me." She pulled out her phone and dialed 911. I stood there in disbelief as she described me as a hostile squatter refusing to vacate land adjacent to Willowbrook Estates. She gave my address, called me potentially dangerous, and added, "Please hurry. I'm frightened for my safety." Which brings us back to the flashing lights in my driveway. Karen's fantasy was crashing hard into reality. The deputies now understood she'd called in a bogus complaint about a retired federal lawman. The older deputy walked over from the second cruiser. "Marshal Williams," he said, shaking my hand, "we apologize for the confusion. Miss Whitfield, you reported a trespasser, but based on documentation, you're the one on private land without permission. This land belongs to the whole expansion project." Karen cried. I pulled out my phone and showed them everything: deed, zoning maps, survey. As she's been warned verbally and in writing to stay off my land. The deputies exchanged a look. "Ma'am," the senior one asked, "did you climb a lock gate to access this property?" "I have authority here," she stammered, the panic beginning to rise. "No, you don't. Filing a false police report is a misdemeanor. Reporting a property owner as a squatter is a serious offense." Karen looked like a fish out of water, her mouth opening and closing. "The whole rules clearly state, whole rules don't apply outside the HOA." He cut her off, then turned to me. "Would you like to press charges?" I thought about the harassment, the letters, the threats. "Yes," I said, "and I'll be filing a restraining order." The deputy nodded. "Ma'am, turn around and place your hands behind your back. You can't be serious. I know the sheriff whom Marshal Williams worked alongside for 10 years. He replied. Karen sputtered as they cuffed her and read her rights. Word travels fast in a small town. By nightfall, half the neighborhood had heard about Karen Whitfield being arrested for trespassing on the land of a retired U.S. Marshal. The next whole meeting set attendance records. I was invited to speak on property rights. Karen sat in the back, on bail, her face a mask of embarrassment. When members called for her resignation, she protested. I was protecting property values. That ranch is an eyesore. That's when I dropped the real bombshell. I looked into this, I said. Turns out, Karen filed a proposal for an equestrian amenity expansion 3 months ago, one that would require acquiring adjacent land. My land. Gasps echoed through the room. A board member took the folder from me and read it aloud. This is a strategic land acquisition, Karen. You tried to force out a property owner for an HOA facility. It's not theft. She shouted. It's for community improvement. It's fraud. Someone yelled. The vote to remove her was unanimous. She was banned from holding any leadership role. The DA filed charges: trespassing, false police report, harassment, attempted fraud. 6 months later, at sentencing, the judge didn't hold back. You abused your position to intimidate a legal property owner. You wasted police resources and attempted to orchestrate a fraudulent land seizure, he said. Karen got 18 months, probation, 200 hours of community service, and $15,000 in fines. Her face turned ghostly. But I was improving the neighborhood. You were trying to steal someone's land. The judge replied. Court is adjourned. As the bailiff led her away, Karen looked back at me. Her face wasn't angry anymore, just stunned. The queen of the HOA was dethroned and finally facing justice. If you enjoyed seeing justice served, hit like. Subscribe for more real stories of HOA drama and takedowns.